because every state wants to put forth a formula which it wants, from which it can gain. Now you have the vertical competition already done. We did have a discussion. And there is, for those students who really think of this, it's much easy to do a political analysis because everybody talks, anything that comes to their mind. But there is a very vibrant economic literature. And I think it's, at least you can go to a political thing, but at least understand the economic literature before you go there. One of the earliest papers on this came in 1950 by James Buchanan, and it's on federalism and fiscal equity, which was in American Economic Review. It's a basic paper. Subsequently, Robin Barbie and Frank Platters have done quite a bit of work. Another important paper that came out was in 1962 by Albert Burton, and the paper was called Theory of Grants. And that lays down, why do you need to give general purpose grants? Why do you need to give specific purpose grants? And there is a lot of more of literature on what type of grants we evoke, what type of response. And there is one volume published by NBER called Public Finance Needs, Sources and Utilization. This came out in 1962. There are a series of papers, including the one important paper by Richard Musgrave. Anyway, I don't want to give you the lecture on theory of intergovernmental transfers, but it's a very vibrant this thing. Reading this will help you to understand, get a clarity, rather than simply start thinking that fiscal federalism is a common sense subject. This is not. There is a very vibrant literature on that. Now, objective of horizontal devolution that you're talking about, horizontal formula that you're talking about, is basically, you have the regions with the different ability to raise revenues and different cost differences in providing public services, different types of needs. The composition of the population may be different. There may be more children in one place, in case you need more spending on education. There may be more old people in some places. So cost disabilities, revenue disabilities, and expenditure needs are the most important things. And the finance commissions have tried to work out the indicators which will represent that. In addition to that, they come up and say that you need to have an incentive formula. Sometimes the incentive part is this thing, so that the objective is to enable, please note the word, enable every state to provide comparable levels of public services at comparable effort. It's not that I will not raise revenue, but I want transfers to come. Comparable levels of public services at comparable effort. Finance commissions have not, the objective is that, say they put variables basically representing that. And as Rajamannar said, Rajamannar was the chairman of the 4th Finance Commission. And he was also chairman of a separate committee established by the government of Tamil Nadu. And he said, it all is a judgment by the 5 wise men, or the majority of them. Ultimately, it works out to that. Now, there is an interesting thing on the international practice, how it happens. In Canada, cost differences are not a major issue. What they do is they work out the revenue disabilities using what is called a representative tax system approach to estimate the taxable capacity. And then what happened is, and when they do that, it's not just the taxes, they do take non-tax revenues as well. When they do that, when the oil prices started increasing, it became very difficult, and therefore they said oil prices, they will only take half of it. Oil, revenue from oil thing. But then they have been able, they don't have a finance commission. The Department of Finance in the there is a unit in the Department of Finance, and there is so much of a confidence that I used to have a friend called Douglas Clark. They used to call him Mr. Equalization. That is the Germany is a very interesting example. I'm just giving you this thing because you see, we all just say that, we need to really go back and look at Germany is interesting. There is both vertical distribution and horizontal distribution. The the federal government actually gives money, but the one lander gives the money to another lander. A rich lander gives money to another lander directly, without going through any process. I mean, there is that sort of a thing. Of course, Australia is a case where you have estimation. There is a permanent Commonwealth Grants Commission, and that estimates revenue capacities and expenditure needs, and based on that, the equalization formula is determined. Why I'm saying is that every country follows a particular model. So we have been following this, and then it's almost 70 years since we have been doing it. And we have been doing this in a manner that broad indicators of revenue disability, cost disability, and need is taken. And in order to target, if there is any, in fact, Ajay just said cushioning. In order to do that, after when you indicators, you are not able to target it properly. In order to do that, you have used the 275 grants. I mean, that's the way it has been done. Anyway, I don't want to uh, take it except by saying that in the initial finance commissions, up to the seventh, predominant weight was given to population, and some weight was given to the income. There was concerns about it. Income, they said, income accrual is different from income collection. But still it had, this thing. And from 8th Finance Commission onwards, they had both inverse of income as well as the distance from income. In fact, both, I mean, see, if somebody said that this commission has been used, I mean, this contribution is irrational. The irrationality started much earlier. I mean, and then, I mean, there are lots of things were written at that time. A same commission using both the inverse and the distance. So anyway, as I said, we will have a lot of things to say. I don't want to say anything. Some certain things that I want to say, I will reserve it for tomorrow. Anyway, I am supposed to talk. So let me stop at this and invite my dear colleague Pinaki Chakravarti.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Professor Joseph, Mr. Enja, Professor Parameswaran, Professor Shanmugam, distinguished participants, dear students. I'm delighted to be here and thank you for the invitation. It's great to be back to GIFT and also to meet friends and colleagues here. So I would like to, since Finance Commission numbers are hard numbers, I'll just give you a ballpark figure. Don't take it very seriously, but this is just a rough estimate, and I think how much money this Finance Commission recommendation has actually helped centers' savings. So if we look at 15th Finance Commission's recommendation, total revenue deficit grant was more than 2 lakh crore. If we adjust it to 5-6% inflation, 5 years, it would have been almost double. So straight saving is around 5 lakh crores in the next 5 years. Second is they have given 7.37 or 7.97 lakh crore for the urban and rural local government. Out of that, basic grant is 3.56 lakh crore. Rest is all tied and there are so many conditionalities. So you don't know what that absorption would be. So we may have a lot of savings there. So minimum money that the central government is going to save in the next 5 years, because the way the Finance Commission recommendation has been framed, will be something like 7 to 8 lakh crore. So that's the broad number. It may be little less, it may be little more, but it will be 7 to 8, maybe 10 lakh crore also. So that's the broad number in terms of vertical devolution. I will not talk about vertical devolution. Whatever I had to speak on vertical devolution, I have already spoken in the last session. Okay. Okay. Now, if we really no, it's okay. Are you? Okay. Yeah. So what was the yeah. Yeah, I'll just do it. Yeah. I'll do it. Yeah. So what was the issue before the 16th Finance Commission was set up? I think one issue was a sharp reduction. This commission continuously talked about very high deficit at the state level. This is contrary to the kind of fiscal adjustment that has happened after COVID. There was a sharp reduction in deficit. However, debt of both the union and state remains at an elevated level. And this is not an Indian phenomenon. This is globally true. Global economy is at a very highly indebted level. Second issue this commission talks about is the issue of, fiscal space. Center has only 1/3 of the resources. States have 2/3 of the resources after devolution. So center doesn't have money. I think let us not get into India. Let us look at global data. This is available in OECD. All the advanced economies where there is a federal structure, the average spending by the local and the provincial government is around 60%. So this is also about development. So the countries which are prosperous, developed and federal, there it is the local government or the subnational government. They are the primary drivers of spending. So that is the second issue. So, and states in aggregate, if we look at since the enactment of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, actually manage their fiscal affairs much better than the union government. Few states, of course, had high fiscal deficit, high debt. There are reasons for that. I'm not getting into that. So what was the expectation? I thought a flexible fiscal framework focused on capital expenditure, because there is a huge decline in capital expenditure because the revenue deficit is going up despite the central interest-free loans, etc. If we look at states-owned capital expenditure, it is declining because of the high. A transparent fiscal framework to deal with off-budget borrowing and liabilities. Finance Commission has made some recommendations. I'll come to that. And I expected a harmonized guarantee management law that will be critical for greater fiscal transparency. So anyway, none of this have been done. Now, what are the vertical and horizontal issues? If we talk about 16th Finance Commission, this is based on the recommendations they made. There are three conceptual issues. One is when the vertical is fixed, and in this case, it is fixed for the last 15 years. So 14th had 42%, which was retained at 41% by the 15th, and 16th also retained at the same 41%. But how does that impact horizontal distribution? Now, can we have a fixed horizontal devolution share? Let us assume that the 16th Finance Commission did not make any change on the weights and the indicators used to decide horizontal devolution. If that were the case, even then, the fixed share would not have been possible because the updated data would have given you different shares for the states, right? So even if we keep the vertical devolution fixed at 41%, and if we say that I use the horizontal devolution formula that was used by the earlier Finance Commission, I still would have a different expenditure need because my individual share, state share has changed. So without doing an assessment of how much money is required post-devolution, which is now considered synonymous with the revenue deficit, it is actually, earlier it was non-planned revenue deficit. When planned and non-planned revenue expenditure was considered, it was called revenue deficit grant. In hindsight, I think the 14th Finance Commission should have termed it differently. It should have been it should not have been called as revenue deficit grant. I think it should have been called revenue expenditure need grant or something which is not using the term called revenue deficit. But no Finance Commission could anticipate that deficit will be considered as actual deficit. It is not actual deficit. It is an assessed deficit after the devolution has been made. This is completely different than the deficit in the revenue account. So the argument that states have revenue deficit, that's why they should get revenue deficit grant, is also not correct. So in that context, I would think that it should have been assessed expenditure revenue need grant rather than revenue deficit grant. But that time it was not possible to envisage that we will end up in a situation like this. So this is an alarming kind of a situation where there are states who have lost money in absolute volume in nominal term, and then there is no grant to actually take care of their expenditure need post the devolution. So that is the first point that I wanted to say. So even if you keep your horizontal devolution fixed, you cannot have fixed share because the data has changed. Now you have changed the horizontal share because you have changed all the indicators, and then you haven't assessed the need of the states. So this is something which is a huge conceptual fallacy in the Finance Commission data. I would say it's an error, and this error has been accepted. So that is the first thing. Second question is on the question of indicators of devolution, equity versus efficiency. Now, from the first Finance Commission to the ninth Finance Commission, there was an indicator called collection of taxes. That time it was income tax and later on union excise duties came in. But collection was discontinued for a reason, and that reason I'll just highlight as narrated as provided as rational by the 10th Finance Commission why they discontinued that collection as an indicator. Devolution to the northeastern and hilly states, I think why it is going to be a major problem in the next 5 years. And why it is going to be a major problem for the next 5 years? Because when plan non-plan distinction was eliminated, northeastern and hilly states, if we look at, tax devolution was not sufficient to cover their expenditure gap, because tax devolution constituted in many states less than 1/4 of their total transfer, because they used to get a lot of money in the form of plan grants, additional central assistance, special central assistance, etc., etc., etc. But those things have all stopped. Now this has become tax devolution has become the primary mode of transfer. So discontinuation of plan grants, abolition of plan non-plan distinction, and then a sharp decline in their aggregate vertical share, horizontal share, will make their day-to-day running of the government an extremely difficult task. So I'll come to that a little later. Now let me move to the next slide. And if we look at states' gross fiscal deficit to GSDP ratio, all the major states, just for 1 year I have put this data, 25-26 BE. And this really doesn't show anything alarming. So except for a few states which has special category states have a very large deficit, most of the states are well within the FRBM limit, and FRBM limit it keeps changing. Now it is 3, it was 3.5 earlier because of the power sector borrowing recommended by the 15th Finance Commission. There is no major issue in the state finance commission. Now let me come to the other issue of, home tax revenue to GSDP ratio. Now we are talking about horizontal devolution should have been, efficiency should be rewarded, etc. Now if we look at this scatter plot for 3 years, and in all these 3 years, one thing is very clear: the states which are actually having high per capita income are also the states who have high tax to GDP ratio. So instead of taking something which is GSDP share, if you have just taken tax effort like the 15th Finance Commission did, that would have sent a signal for improving the tax to GDP ratio. Instead of that, the GSDP share has been taken. Now this GSDP share is an extremely difficult, extremely problematic in the sense that in near future or in foreseeable future, we don't see that Bihar's share going crossing the share of say Haryana. It's not possible, right? So it's a kind of fixed share, and that share has been given a weightage. So going forward, any finance commission will have to will be very difficult for the finance commission. So morning Hasib Drabu was saying that finance commission has become the agent of the central government. I would say finance, I don't know whether they have become the agent of the central government, because the devolution at 41% remains there. So I think this, but they certainly become friends of richer states. So that is, so I don't think they have become agents of the but the, central government, but they certainly have become good friends of richer states. So that's the, and this is completely against the equity. So that is as far as the horizontal devolution is concerned. I don't know why they have done this. Total outstanding liabilities, if you look at the states which have got high per capita income, are also having a low debt. So in other words, states with higher fiscal deficit are able to manage well, and states who are with a low fiscal capacity, low tax to GDP ratio as having high debt. So there needs to be some mechanism. Now you have an extremely a strange situation where we have been saying that, well, you don't collect taxes, you have large deficits, I reduce your devolution share, and now you manage. So this is just not going to work. This is absolutely contrary to the idea of fiscal equalization. So what has been done is conceptually wrong. The other thing I wanted to highlight, the kind of casual approach this commission has taken. I'll just read, I'm not reading the first one. First one, operationalization of the first one is extremely difficult. This is of budget liabilities and fiscal deficit. Government of India's action ticket report also says that yes, we'll look into it and all that. Now, you look at the second one. The mechanism under Article 293(3) of the Constitution mandates the states obtain the union's consent before borrowing against the security of their consolidated fund and all that. And they say, we want this to be continued. What is there, the Finance Commission, to say this to be continued? This is a constitutional provision. It is there since 1950s. So there are many such strange things in this report. I don't know when it was written and how it is written. So anyway, now let us get to the issue that I talked about, 10th Finance Commission. Why the generation of income, the collection is not an indicator that to be used. They say generation of income, especially in the non-agricultural income, is especially interdependent activity. So there is no concept of local income anymore. So if there is no concept of local income, you then cannot give an weightage to the share of the local income in the devolution formula. This is also conceptually wrong with the integration of the economy. You are talking about one market, one country, and then we are talking about I'll be rewarding you because if your share is higher than the share of a poor states. Poor state share will always be lower than the richer states. So this just doesn't make sense. Now, let me go to this per capita GSDP major ranking of the states. Now, look at the kind of ranking that has changed. And since we are talking about horizontal devolution, different states take different position as far as their deprivation from the central transfer, on central transfer is concerned. And look at Punjab. Punjab share has, Punjab's per capita income ranking has come down from 2 to 9. So, see, Punjab's per capita income share goes up. That's quite natural with the more than 40% of your devolution coming from the income distance. Kerala's share has gone down because Kerala per capita income ranking has gone up. So we really cannot argue for equity, bringing per capita income, and then we say that efficiency has to be rewarded through some other means. I am not saying that high per capita income states do not have problems, but the kind of problem that these states have are very different than the kind of problem poorer states have. And these states, the high per capita income states, should be provided specific grants for that. But bringing in a GSDP share in the horizontal devolution formula is deeply problematic. Now, I don't want to get into this because this we know. And this is the last slide I have, and I'll stop after that. Finance Commission, devolution, whatever we talk about, North versus South, income inequality, penalization for performance, this is contrary, this is completely cannot be backed by data. If we look at 11th Finance Commission's award, 70% of the resources, tax devolution, I mean, was going to the states based on the distance of income criteria and index of backwardness. 62.5 was the income distance and 7.5 was index of backwardness. And that has come down now to 42.5%. We are still talking about rich financing poor is only going to create fiscal inequality, accentuate fiscal inequality in our system. Okay, and now this is the share. This is this I have just updated. There may be this is my apologies. It's very small. Look at the share of the high income states that has gone up in the 16th Finance Commission Award, and look at the middle income states shares that and the low income state share. What we are seeing and if we look at Odisha has gone into the higher category as a middle income state. That's why the fifth. That's why the other state share has actually increased. The low income state share has increased. If you take Odisha out, actually there is a steep decline in the share of the low income states. And this table, Kiran, you had shared with me the day Finance Commission report was out, and this is the story. So all the poorer states which are in marked in red. And it shows how they have been impacted by the Finance Commission's transfers and devolution and especially the northeastern and the hilly states. So it's a very different kind of a report, and it completely ignores the fact that equity in a fiscal term and efficiency in a fiscal term is different than something like a macro indicator called GSDP, which you use in the devolution formula and then distort the whole process of equity in a very significant way and impacts the poorer states more than and then support that with a revenue deficit grant. So I think they have to come more to the government of India for special grants, etc. Otherwise, day-to-day functioning of the government in some of these states will become extremely difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chakrabarti, for those very insightful presentation. One thing I have never been able to understand any time, whenever we make a comparison, we make a comparison with the previous one.
No, I have done
as if that was optimal.
No, I have done fine.
I know, but generally speaking, sort of what as
No, I
compared
didn't do
to the
that, sir.
previous one, what happens?
No, I
But
didn't do
anyway, anyway, so thank you for the presentation, a very, very succinct presentation. Now let me ask Dr. Shanmugam.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sir. Thank you. Yeah, I can. Good evening. First of all, let me thank GIFT for the opportunity, particularly to Dr. Joseph, the director of GIFT. So already Dr. Pinaki covered various issues relating to horizontal devolution. I will concentrate mostly on the approach followed by the Finance Commission, particularly the 16th Finance Commission. We know that the 16th Finance Commission was given greater flexibility in deciding its approach and methodology through the TOR. But it missed that opportunity to make any reform in deciding the new approach or methodology. I am going to concentrate mostly on the 4-5 aspects relating to the approach and methodology followed by the Finance Commission. In the Finance Commission framework, there was no explicit normative equalization framework. Second, there was no assessment of long-term impact of the horizontal devolution. Third, there was no analysis on the persistent interest rate disparities among the states. But the finance commissions, particularly even the 16th Finance Commission, followed the approaches of the earlier commissions and used 6 proxy indicators and arbitrary weight for these criteria. There was a weak balance between equity and efficiency aspect. It dropped the tax effort as a efficiency criterion, but introduce the square root transformation of the GDP contribution, which affect the larger states, the better performing states, and there was no flexibility, fiscal flexibility given to the states. So these are the aspects on which I'm going to talk one by one. First, no explicit normative equalization framework. Already Dr. Govindrao pointed out. Theoretically, equalization transfers are consistent with the normative considerations of equity and efficiency. They basically ensure equal fiscal treatment of identical persons across states and promote equity. They reduce fiscally induced migration and enable the states to provide comparable public service. They also reduce barriers to factor mobility and enhance economic efficiency. So we are all aware of these theoretical aspects. Of course, we have many international models. Federal nations have developed their own models of equalization. Among them, Canadian model and Australian models are two well-established models in the global scenario. You know that Canadian model focuses only on the fiscal side of equalization, not expenditure side. But Australian model focuses on both expenditure side and revenue side of equalization. In Australia, the Commonwealth Grand Commission derived the equalization transfers. In its framework, the states differ in their revenue raising capacity and cost of providing public services because of varying fiscal capacity, demographic variations, etc. It considers the relative differences that are beyond the control of states as disabilities. On the revenue side, the tax bases are computed using the value of transactions in each state that would be taxed under the average tax policy. On the expenditure side, two types of disabilities are used by the Commission. One is use disability, the other one is cost disability. The use disability encompasses variations because of the demographic factors and access to private sector. The cost disability involved disparities in the unit per unit cost of providing services because of the regional, cultural, and the economic factors. Finally, the transfer is calculated as the sum of its expenditure and revenue disabilities. It is a very standard model, but look at our Indian case. In India, the finance commissions recognize differences in revenue capacity and cost delivery, under the cost delivery, service delivery. But our finance commissions followed the principle of equity because they argue that equity-based devolution criteria aims to compensate both sources of differences. But the problem is they used proxies such as per capita income distance to address differences in the revenue sources and area to address cost differences. None of our commission has formulated an explicit normative methodology for deriving equalization transfer. So consequently, the horizontal equalization remain incomplete task in India. Next issue about the long-term impact of the horizontal devolution. Here I can show an example using the combined shares of the 4 top beneficiary states versus 4 southern states. From 6th Finance Commission to 15th Finance Commission period, the combined shares of 4 southern states declined from 24.8% to 15.8%. If you look at the shares of the top 4 top beneficiary states like UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, and then West Bengal. So their combined share increased from 42.5% to 51.02%. You know, the gap, in fact, it almost doubled. Even in the 16th Finance Commission, the southern states combined share increased to 17%, just 1.2 percentage point higher than the 15th Finance Commission combined share. But for the 4 top beneficiary states, the share declined to 50% instead of 51 in the 15th Finance Commission period. So the point is that over time, the redistribution has increased. Mostly it benefits the poorer states. Of course, it is not an issue, but the issue is how they are determining the horizontal amounts. So next issue about the persistent disparities. See, the main task of the Finance Commission is to not to equalize income. We are aware of that. But they have to minimize or reduce fiscal disparities. So that is why the fiscal transfers are given. But what happened? Look at the data. Even you take two merit goods, health and education. Bihar spent 937 rupees as per capita health spending. Per capita public expenditure of Bihar is only 937 rupees. But Arunachal Pradesh spent 10,148 rupees, almost 10 times larger. So look at per student education spending. Bihar spent 20,000 plus, but Sikkim spent 1,30,000. Huge disparity. So in India, the horizontal equalization efforts so far not fully effective. So this is what emerging. Then what the 16 finance commissions recommended so far. But we are not able to do the horizontal equalization properly. There are, of course, other disparities. UP, Bihar have a very large amount of young population, whereas Kerala, Tamil Nadu confront aging populations and rising social security burden. In fact, at the time of meeting, many states highlighted all these disparities, but the Significant Finance Commission never take into account these disparities. Next, let me share something about the devolution criteria and arbitrary weight used by the Finance Commission. So look at the sixth Finance Commission. It adopted a very simple formula with only two indicators, population with 75% weightage and then income distance with 25% weightage. But seventh Finance Commission onwards, the equity-oriented criteria acquired greater dominance. Okay. Over time, the weight assigned to population declined steadily to 10% under the 11th Finance Commission period, but increased to 25% under the 13th Finance Commission, and then subsequently declined to 15% under the 15th Finance Commission period. On the other hand, the weight assigned to income distance increased sharply to 62.5% under the 11th Finance Commission and later moderated to 45% under the 15th Finance Commission. So, between the 6th and 15 or 16, many finance commission introduced several new parameters which increase the complexity and variability of the devolution formula. So you can see the slides where you can see the different criteria and weights used by different finance commission starting from 6th to 15th Finance Commission. Of course, the 15th Finance Commission used the 6 criteria: population, income distance, area, forest cover, and then demographic change. So these are the and tax effort. So these are the criteria. The weights are already there. Now, the concern is that too much weight assigned to income distance. But in fact, this indicator is not a perfect proxy for the fiscal capacity. Already there was a discussion on this. Why? Because the state taxes are largely consumption based. Income include export earning also, but in GST they are not taxed. So no purchasing power adjustment in our GDP figures. So, but finance commissions keep on using the income distance criteria. Regarding area, already people argued because area included desert, forest, etc. But still they are using area as a criterion. Then come to the demographic performance. So in the 15th Finance Commission formula, the inverse of TFR was introduced, but now 16th Finance Commission argued that it lost its relevance and it introduced the population growth from 1971 to 2011. But even, we are sitting in 2026. But we are still depending on the population growth between 1971 to 2011. So I mean, see, other issues are like, weights have changed arbitrarily across the commissions. Only God knows how the weights are assigned for different criteria over time. Now, let me say something about the approach of the 16th Finance Commission. The commission, in its report, said that its approach is guided by two principles: gradual changes in state share. and recognition of the state's economic contribution. So these are the two guiding principles. But it says that purely equity-based devolution undermine incentive for states to raise their own revenue. So it wanted to introduce the state's contribution to national GDP. It also states that revenue deficit grants create adverse incentive, so it doesn't want to give any revenue deficit grant, and also it stop sector specific and state specific grant. At the same time, the report says that states should discontinue off budgeting borrowing and bring all liabilities onto their budget and keep fiscal deficit to below 3% level. So it basically reduces the fiscal phase available for the states. Regarding the criteria, in fact, for the income distance formula, I think they use the same formula, but use latest data benchmark to design. For the area, the floor rate was reduced to 1.5%. The states with less than 1% share in the total area is assigned 1 point. It's a floor rate. Earlier, 15th Finance Commission was using 2% floor rate. Regarding the forest cover, this 16th Finance Commission constructed a weighted forest index using 3 indicators, namely open forest, moderately dense forest, and then very dense forest. Already I spoke about demographic performance. It used inverse of the population growth between 1971 and 2011. So now you can see the slight differences between the weights used by 15th Finance Commission and the 16th Finance Commission. So among the criteria, the tax effort was dropped, but instead of that, the GDP contribution was introduced. But weights are again arbitrarily chosen. As I said, God alone knows how the weights are determined. So now you can see the tax devolution stars even given to different states in the 15th Finance Commission and 16th Finance Commission period. But you can very well see that the changes are very, very, very marginal. For 14 states, the shares increased marginally compared to the previous commission. At the same time, for 14 states, the share declined. Okay, Karnataka gained the most with almost 0.5 percentage point, but this will give them mostly about, I think, 9,500 crore additional grant. Next, followed by Kerala with 0.457% gains. Among the states which lost, Madhya Pradesh, its share declined by 0.5 percentage point, followed by Arunachal Pradesh. For Uttar Pradesh, the loss is only 0.32 percentage points. So the changes are very, very gradual. So Finance Commission is successful for the first principle. But regarding the second principle, a lot of questions. So first, we can look at the equity versus efficiency issue. Actually, the report itself, you can see that there are 3 equity criteria: income distance, population share, and area. There are 3 indicators belonging to the efficiency criterion: tax effort, but now replaced with the GDP contribution, then forest cover, and then demographic change. But the report again says that this classification is only indicative. Why? Because forest cover and demographic change cannot be strictly represent efficiency. Area is a cost disability criteria and population is a need-based criteria. Therefore, they can be included in the equity criteria in the page number 146. But at the end, in page number 148, it says that almost all criteria impact both efficiency and equity. Then the question is that why we need different weights? Okay, we can use equal weight, but they are using arbitrarily determined weights. So another point is that the 16th Finance Commission computes own tax revenue efficiency using the stochastic frontier model, but it never uses it in the tax devolution formula. So these are the issues. Okay, so next, the shift towards the efficiency, sir. So if you look at the weights assigned to equity criterion, in the 15th Finance Commission period, it was 75%, sir. For the efficiency, 25% weight. So the ratio is, efficiency equity ratio is 1:3. But in the 16th Finance Commission period, it shifted to 30% and 70%. So the ratio is 1:2.3%. the shift is very, very small to make any significant outcome change. So in this devolution formula, poorer states continue to receive higher share than fiscally stronger and better performing states. Already I said the marginal change is only 0.5% maximum. But ideally, one can argue that the meaningful efficiency weight should be around 45 to 50%. Suppose you want to really strike a balance between equity and efficiency, it should be 50-50 or at least 45 to 50%, sir. So now, already I covered this slide. So I am coming to the important criteria, that is the GDP criteria. So they want to consider efficiency. That is why they dropped the tax effort, but contribution to GDP. But there was an argument saying that how GDP contribution can be considered as the efficiency parameter, whatever it is. So basically now the question is whether state want to consider the state tax effort or tax efficiency or the contribution to the central government tax. But it seems that they want to consider the state's contribution to central taxes. But of course, there are issues in measuring the state's contribution to central taxes because we know accrual and actual problems. So that is why we need a proxy. So many argue that GDP contribution, GSDP contribution may be a proxy for representing the central government contribution, a state government contribution to central taxes. Probably they would have taken this indicator. Okay. But what happened is that they are not using actual GSDP share. They are making square root transformation. It basically affects the advantages of better performing states, even their ranking also. So basically this indicator turns out to be an equity, quasi-equity criteria, not efficiency criterion, sir. So because of this moderation of the indicator, what happened? I can give you example. Take Maharashtra. Maharashtra's average actual GSDP share for 5 years was 14.23%. But it reduced to 8.31% because of the transformation. So it lost almost 6%. Tamil Nadu share declined from 9% to 6.7%. Karnataka share from 8.9% to 6.6%. Gujarat also. So for 5 more states, the share declined because of this transformation. But at the same time, the shares of 19 states increased, particularly with the smaller GDP states, sir. So they are getting advantages because of this transformation. So now the question is that what should be the weight? How can we determine the optimal weight? There are many options, but I want to show that if you apply some alternative weighting schemes, what could happen? I try few weighting scheme. First, let us take all the 6 criteria, but we want to first I want to change only weights for 2 criteria. Instead of 10% weight for the square root of GDP contribution, 25%. But reduce income distance criteria at the weight to 27.5%, so that is striking a balance. If so, what happened is that because the Maharashtra's overall share would have increased from 6.44% to 7.218%, sir. Similarly, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu shares would go up. Similarly, for many other better performing states. So, the Secretary Finance Commission estimates a total vertical share of 104 lakh crore. So this 0.78 percentage point increase for Maharashtra would translate into additional 80,000 crore for 5-year period, or roughly 16,000 crore annually. Similarly, other better performing states would benefit. Okay. So here in this example, we are giving higher weightage for efficiency, not higher weight, at least closer to the efficiency. So next, the equal weighting, because the Finance Commission itself admitted that all indicators are addressing both issues. Then we can apply equal weighting. In that case, the share of better performing states would increase further. For example, Maharashtra share will increase to 7.84%. Okay, somebody may question that why you want to use again arbitrary weight. Is there any way to use some statistically determined weight? Yes, there are many techniques are available. I tried that principal component analysis method. Okay, so it uses the variability in the indicators and then it assigns weight statistically. If we do that, the income distance weight will be 21%. So look at, because this is a statistically determined weight. Similarly, the GSDP share will get to 17% weight and so on. So so you can see the weight in the slide. But the point is that if we apply the statistically determined weight, the shares of better performing states will definitely increase further. Okay, now we can make some other arrangement. So instead of GDP, the square root of GDP share, one can try actual GSDP share. If we do that, again, the shares of better performing states will go up. So basically, these exercises clearly indicate that there should be a striking balance between equity and efficiency. But one can argue. So what is our objective? We want that every state should be given a chance to provide equal amount of services. So they should be given support. But the question is how long? Because already 16 Finance Commission tried, at least 15 Finance Commission already tried, but still we have the persistent disparities, even in the merit goods. Then why? I think something wrong in our formulation. So that we need to think in a better way to do that. So basically, already 16 Finance Commission submitted its report. The central government accepted. So we can't influence now. But of course, for future commission, so our discussion may be useful. So the future commission should adopt an explicit normative equalization framework. They should try to strike a balance between equity and efficiency. They should use actual GSDP share at least to address the efficiency of the states. And then they should adopt data-driven weighting determination, not arbitrary weighting. And also they must give fiscal incentives based on the performance to strengthen fiscal discipline. And also they have to rationalize the role of chesses and surcharges. And also there must be a periodical review of long-term distributional trend. And also states must be given greater flexibility to undertake the growth enhancing investment, particularly infrastructure, higher education, and health. Finally, this is the last slide, sir. Here, our 14th Finance Commission chairperson, Dr. Y.V. Reddy, said that Finance Commission reports often invite universal dissatisfaction. So I think that is valid statement for 16th Finance Commission also. So because 16th Finance Commission also blindly followed the approach of its predecessors. It introduced only incremental changes in the distributional formula. So before I wind up, I want to say last point. So recently the Nidhi Aayog released that fiscal health index for the year 2023-24. So in the slides, you can see the rank given by the Nidhi Aayog's FHI index, and also the 16th Finance Commission devolution share. Based on that, rankings are given. So let's take, for example, Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu's rank was 9 according to SFC devolution share. But in the fiscal health index, its rank was 13. So, Tamil Nadu is a better performing state. In 2024-25, Tamil Nadu's growth rate is the highest in the country, 11.2%. And also, it is the second largest contributor to our GDP. And also, it ranks almost among the top 3 states in many economic and social parameters. Particularly for social parameter, we are next to Kerala. But what happened is that our fiscal rank is very, very low. But here, the issue is that the fiscal health index use 9 fiscal indicators, not like income, area, population, and so on. Then the question is that why can't we decide something like, because the objective of Finance Commission is to determine is basically to reduce the fiscal gap. So basically we have to use fiscal variables, not other indicators. But Tamil Nadu people argue that okay, so we compromise fiscal health for the development. Okay, that is why our rank is 13 in the fiscal health. Even Kerala also, look at Kerala's rank was 5, sir. 5th rank in the devolution formula, but 15th rank according to the Nidhi Aayog's fiscal health index. So that what we have many other issues. Let me stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Shanmugam wants to substitute the wisdom of 5 persons with that of 1 person. And even that he's not sure because he wants some statistical technique to do that, as if it doesn't involve judgments anyway. So let me now move to Dr. Parameshwaran. Control അല്ലല്ലേ ഷെയർ ചെയ്യണം അല്ലേ
Respected Chair, Professor Govindarao, and my co-panelist, Professor Pinaki and Professor Shanmugam, and my friends and students. First of all, I thank GIFT, particularly Professor Joseph and Kiran for inviting me. But I don't know why they invited me because I am not a person working on public finance. Only thing I did is last year, CDS conducted a workshop on 16th Finance Commission. The director asked me, okay, you make a presentation. Somebody has to make a presentation on CDS. Then I prepared something and presented. From that day onwards, they marked me as a public finance person. But I work on issues related to growth, macro, and development issues. So now after going to getting this invitation, I was reading something, and I also thought that it is public finance is a serious subject, particularly the center state fiscal devolution, and it should not be delegated to public finance people alone. And here my I'm not going to this devolution formula or these things. I'm looking at more on what can be the dynamic implications of this kind of devolution, and what is happening in India regarding this uh, uh, this kind of fiscal devolution. And then after discussing these issues, then at the end, I will make some comments on the the fiscal devolution formula of the 16th Finance Commission. Now, uh, essentially, I want to highlight is that in India, there's a wide income disparity among Indian states, and this has dynamic implications in terms of highly unequal fiscal capacities. And what happens that this generates, this can have subsequent impact on disparity among the states. So that is what I am focusing. And first we discuss what is the way it is affecting. This is the standard deviation of the log of per capita income of the states from 93, 94 onwards. I have 80, 80 onwards, the same pattern. But what it says essentially is that richer states are growing faster than poorer states, and the disparity is increasing. But towards the end, you can see that it is declining, but it is not due, it is mainly due to the fact that is COVID. COVID affected the service sector and manufacturing drastically, that is richer states, and two sectors which recorded a positive growth rate during the COVID year is agriculture and real estate. And that is why poorer states done well during that time. But after some time, it is quite possible that with this GDP current revision, base year revision, it may again go back to us. And the outcome of this continuous faster growth of the richer state is that huge disparity in the per capita income. For example, you consider all the 29 states, Goa, if it is 100 rupees income, Bihar only 9 rupees. And then if you think that Goa, Sikkim, and Delhi are small states, not comparable, you take Gujarat, still Bihar only 16 rupees, UP has 27 rupees when Gujarat has 100 rupees. Huge disparities there. And one implication of this huge disparity is the huge disparities in the fiscal capacity also. And another important issue is that this is something unique to India. When you look at the literature, since 1980s, countries have tended to exhibit income convergence, absolute income convergence. And this even in the presence of restrictions on factor mobility, trade flows, and heterogeneous institutions and policy framework. But when it comes to the Indian states, from the day one itself, public policy is focusing on rebalanced regional development as one of the core objectives. Then further, Indian states are functioning within a common governance framework, share relatively porous internal borders, and embed in a uniform macroeconomic, financial, and legal institutions. Still, they are diverging. So this is an issue, needs an issue. Now, one implication of this is that you have huge disparities in per capita expenditure. That is, we call fiscal capacity. And I am taking only the general state here. And if Telangana is, this is for the year 23-24, the previous years is also the same pattern. If Telangana is spending 100 rupees, Bihar is only 32 rupees only, UP 39. So this is the difference in the actual spending. And what is its consequences? An important consequence of this wide income disparity is that this great disparity in fiscal capacity leads to great disparities in the provision of public goods. And this disparity in the fiscal capacity can further exacerbate the economic and development disparity by influencing the various aspects of long-run growth process. So what is this long-run growth process we are imagining? When you look at the recent growth theory, there are three channels which generate dynamics which generate growth in a region. One is, we are considering the regional growth. One is technological knowledge spillovers, human capital spillovers, specialization or division of labor. And when these things are there, increasing returns emerge from the first two sources implies that investment climate of a region can exert strong influence on economic growth. A region with a higher fiscal capacity are better able to invest in quality education, health services, physical infrastructure, and other public goods. This enables them to generate and attract talent and investment, reinforcing increasing returns and the growth. The major property of increasing returns is that your benefit depends upon the size of the. If there are human capital spillover, if there are more people in this hall, I will get more. So this agglomeration effect is very high. And then that will attract more people to that area. I am giving you empirical evidence later on why this kind of mechanism in India. Then the division of labor or specialization is also capable of generating a kind of positive feedback relationship among sectors. Essentially, it means that the modern production is characterized by roundaboutness. That is, production of each commodity is divided into a large number of sub-processes, and each process is still done by another set of sub-processes. That is we call specialization. Once you have specialization, what happens is that growth of one sector depends upon whether other sectors are there. Other sectors' growth depends upon the former sector is there. And so when all sectors are growing together, this generates increasing returns at the higher level, at the aggregate level. So, and then divergence will happen. So Kaldor 1970 recognized the importance of this kind of cumulative causation, that is, each stage reinforces the next stage that can contribute to regional divergence. And regional divergence become the norm when manufacturing uses many services or inputs, because we are considering only two sectors here, manufacturing and services, because that is the sector create increasing returns, that is the sectors create divergence. Agriculture usually cannot do that. Now, suppose manufacturing uses many services which are directly or indirectly, which cannot be imported from other regions. Then what happens is that divergence will happen. These services include transportation, other infrastructure services like banking, education, law and order, sanitation, hygiene, all these things. All these are required for the modern world to function properly. So which are usually provided by the state. Now, if the state is providing these services and more talent and this what is called physical capital is coming to a region, then the growth will be higher, the fiscal capacity will be higher, and then this will again create a next level of better performance. Now, this is the literature, there's multiple equilibriums. That is, regions which does not have any of these things, stuck at that point, regions how that these kind of things will go up. So poor regions may not be able to, if we leave everything to the market, may not be able to catch up. So, and then because they have low fiscal capacity and therefore they may not be able to invest in all these things and therefore they may not be able to attract. So now in India, this has been happening. We have shown for all India, we have shown that this kind of cumulative causation is happening. Once you have this kind of mechanism, growth rate will accelerate over time. And then in all India, we have shown in our paper in 2017. And for Indian states, MPhil thesis in center, they examined this issue, whether we can understand this mechanism, income disparity in India in this they found that it is true. And now coming to when you look at the pattern of skilled migration in India, people Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad, all these richer places. Then you look at the distribution of the FDI inflow into Indian states. I have all the states, I put only the 10 states here. What you can see is that the richest 5 states in India account for 86% of the FDI inflow during the last 5 years. This is the cumulative, and they are getting, because they are, when you have agglomeration, what happens is that productivity is higher in those states, things will go to those. When it comes to bank credit, what you can see is that the same thing, that is the richest this is the aggregate credit. If you take it in per capita terms, the reality, this will be much more stark. The fifth 5 richest states account for 60% of the bank credit in India. So now, what is its implications? So now coming to this is the kind of growth process is happening in India, and that is states which are richer have as an accumulated advantage in furthering their richness. And so now I am comment only 2 aspects. One is that of the 16th Finance Commission horizontal devolution. One is that many poor states face a reduction in the share and richer states gain, sometimes marginally. So this can further widen the disparity if offsetting resource flow is not happening. And poor states are finding difficult to provide these services, then more and more migration and capital will move out of them. That is and then its dynamic work against them also in future. Then second thing is that regarding the use of contribution to GDP as a criteria for horizontal devolution, it has been discussed widely here. But my reading of the literature, please correct me if I am wrong. This efficiency means that if I am getting more money, I should also have the incentive to generate more money in terms of tax revenue. Otherwise, I would be happy with whatever I am getting. So when it comes to these things, you consider GDP contribution. That is GDP of a state GDP is generated by this kind of process in India. So if I am contributing less or I am contributing more, it is due to an accumulated advantage. It is nothing to do with the state government efficiency. If you are focusing on state government efficiency, it must be something that how much they are generating on. So that is the one thing here. That is the one issue. Then essentially there is a confusion between efficiency of the state government in mobilizing resources versus the dynamic efficiency of the state economy. State economy may be more dynamic because of its own advantages, but that is nothing that cannot be equated to the state government efficiency in generating revenue. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. I know you did start by saying that, by qualifying that you are an expert, not an expert. And there are many who make comments and discussions without being an expert. So you don't have to be apologetic. You don't have to be apologetic on that. I have, before I open the discussion, one or two observations to make. One is I'll start with the last point you made about GDP contribution. In a competitive federalism literature, we say that this is because of competitive inequality. Because each state competes with the other for resources, fiscal or natural, whether it is investments or various other things. When you have serious competitive inequality, obviously the efficiency cannot happen. I mean, obviously, sort of you will end up with that sort of a solution. And this is the fiscal federalism part of the work. There is one other thing which you missed. You talked about the bank and various other things. If your FRBM Act, which mandates that every state should have only 3% of GDP borrowing, means that Bihar, with its low per capita income, can only borrow 3% of, into per capita GSDP.
That is the bank credited to the
No,
individual.
not bank credit I'm talking about. For infrastructure, capital expenditure infrastructure, they have to borrow.
Yeah.
The state government can borrow only 3% of their GSDP because the government of India allows only 3%. We keep saying there is so much of equity, so many years has happened, nothing has happened. There is a basic contradiction there because ever since, right from 2004, states were not allowed to borrow, poor states were not allowed to borrow more to have their competitive advantage in terms of the infrastructure. Because they have a low per capita income, they can borrow low. That, their borrowing is constrained, they can't create infrastructure, they can't create facilities. And the third thing is, one of the things that in your model that you have to do is, everybody is talking about these days, the growth depends on the nature of institutions. The structure of incentives depends on the nature of institutions. There is a whole lot of literature on that. And, Asimov and these people got their Nobel Prize. Earliest work on that is one of the earliest work is by Mansur Olson on Rise and Decline of Nations. And then, of course, you have Paul Romer's contribution of human capital into the whole growth process. Anyway, that's not an issue we are discussing. But I think one of the reasons when people say, these fellows, we have been giving so much of money and then they are not doing it. The basic infrastructure that is necessary for them, they are not able to create because you are not allowing them to borrow. You need to understand this, Dr. Shanmugam. That's some of the one of the things. Okay, anyway, with this, I would like to open the thing for discussion. And here, we will have we'll have one round of questioning and then answers.
I'm going to have some observation. You can make in the end also. See, from the morning onwards, I was sitting in this corner to listen what is happening in this. I'm not an economist. Yeah. So I was just listening to educate myself. To tell you very frankly, I'm a geographer.
You press the button on.
Yeah. On. Yeah. So I'm basically a geographer. And then, sometimes come here and CDS and try to listen. So whole day I was listening. Please excuse my ignorance. But what really made me a little bit wonder, both 16 Finance Commission's observations, their recommendations, and the discussion is 25. UN put a committee, independent group of scientists, to assess the progress in sustainable development globally. Their recommendation tells that there are 3 levers for sustainable development. One is finance, one is governance, and another is science, technology, innovation. I thought, because Finance Commission is with the mandated from our constitution, and it is supposed to help in the development, that it should address the question of sustainability. That is missing. We can tell, okay, we are talking about the inequality, we are talking about this, so many things we are talking about. But basically what we are talking about, that how much will come from here, how much will go from here. I was wondering whose money, who distributed, who get. That sort of a question really haunting me. Because the type of variables which has been used, as a good number of variables is geography, like a population. We thought the population of the entire country is uniform. There are scheduled castes, there are scheduled tribe, there's a backward class. The whole population group are different. Their distributions are different. You look into the central India. This is a sort of a things which in Kerala we call outliers. Like in the Western Ghats, we have the tribal population. We have the fishermen population on the coast. They're economically in the different spectrum than the central tendency. Not talked about. When we talk about the area, we really do not talk about the area means area. Area means does not make an area. We have a land area, we have water area. And climate change is so important issue, is actually knocking at the door that does not figure out anywhere. We thought of that we are addressing that one by talking about the forest and ecology. And the type of variables we are using is not really appropriate. Because we have a forest area, outside the forest area, we have a tree. And in carbon sequestration, the cultivated tree has a higher efficiency than the forest tree. And that is proven. That is our Indian Forest Institute. They have proven data on that. We don't talk about that. Water body absorbs the carbon dioxide. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about the coastal area. Say we have how many states? 9 states along the coast. Yeah, there are a set of problems are different. Now, what I'm trying to derive the point is that these need to be factored. So when we try to really put a, sort of that 16th Finance Commission has these are the things, it is not that whether 2%, 3% or 4%. It is the question is that Finance Commission in India was established under the Constitution to help regional development and minimize the regional imbalances. Regional imbalances is one of the main factor is the natural resource distribution. That is different in different areas, which Parveshwan was trying to raise. It is not the today's state which has made an efficiency. It has a legacy. It has the resources. It makes on that. So it may be, listening very odd to all of you. That what is this person is talking. But these are the things which, as a layman, I will be looking into it. Thank you.
Yes, Kiran.
Thank you all three of you. Very persuasive and passionate presentations. I have questions for Professor Pinaki as well as Professor Shanmugam. To Professor Pinaki, you have shown 3 different years to say that there's a positive relationship between per capita income and tax effort. Seen independently, it looks like there's a positive relationship. But when we pool the data together, when we see it in terms of a long-term perspective, what we found was that there is a negative relationship between per capita income and tax to GST ratio. And even if we test with the regression model, that effect was strong. And even if we don't do that, and if we just take the average tax GDP ratios for low income, high income, and middle income states, what we have seen over time is that there's a clear-cut convergence. And at the end of 22-23, there's hardly any difference between these three groups of states in terms of tax to GDP ratio. And this finding was actually shown by the RBI report year last. that there is a convergence taking place in tax GDP ratios, and that convergence is partly contributed by GST is what they concluded. I think I will not conclude that. So if that is the case, could a per capita income be a good proxy for an equity criteria? Because what we have shown in our EPW article also was that while high income states are not really increasing their tax GSTP ratios, but they are losing out on the interstate distribution because of the per capita income. So couldn't that create a kind of tension or the kind of distribution bias? Then the point about whether the finance commissions over time have been progressive, or whether the very idea of progressivity of interstate distribution is upheld. What we found, again, looking at the trends over time for the last five finance commissions, was that poor incomes, low income states have been consistently losing in their interstate distribution. So I think there is a bigger question about equity. Now, the challenge is, if we have an indicator that is not really representing fiscal capacity, and on the other hand, even with the existing weight or the reduction in weight is compromising on equity, what is the way out that the Finance Commission should have taken in to ensure that the regressivity component in interstate distribution is not increasing? And as you rightly pointed out, I think GDP contribution clearly shows, and unfortunately, there is no compensatory grants for that. But my concern for Professor Shanmugam is that, sir, although you have shown that there are interstate fiscal disparities in terms of expenditure, the latest I.S. Gulati Memorial Lecture delivered by Professor D.K. Srivatsava has actually shown over time that there is fiscal equalization taking place. He has done the inequality decomposition exercise in health and education, and primarily these two elements, and showed that finance commissions by and large are successful in addressing the fiscal disparities across states by looking at expenditure on these items. And then he pointed out that income divergence could be partly due to the concentration of private investment, and that is where the policy should look at if somebody wants to bridge the income gaps. So then the point, sir, about, as he already pointed out in his presentation, that finance commission transfers are increasingly becoming, regressive in the sense that poor income states are losing share. If we further reduce the equity concern, equity share, wouldn't it really escalate the fiscal disparities? And what are your thoughts on that?
I'll take only 1 minute. See, my question is in continuation to Srikumar Chattopadhyay's point. See, what I have seen that there in the weightage while giving this kind of devolution at different levels. And you have taken the population 90 and area 10. That is what there. You see, you take the case of Kerala. What we are following from 66 onwards, you take the population means, population, what type of criteria? Within that, what is that population means? For example, in Kerala, if we are giving 100 rupee to a general population and 200 to considering the total SC population and 300 roughly to scheduled tribe, that is 1:2, 2:3. That is what we are following from the 96 onwards by giving the plan size to the different sectors of local government. It may be panchayat, the middle tier and the district tier. But still I feel that they are majorly the finance commission's weightage. Nowhere I have seen that there, this particularly the population, only population as such. And the 15th and the 16th finance commission, I'm not very sure about that, if I'm not correct me there. It is 90:10 population and area. So can you think about some kind of these kind of issues? That is what he mentioned. I'm not considering other aspects, but we take the population itself. It's kind of a different kind of, I see,
there is a lot of philosophical understanding to giving this kind of weightage based on the classification of the population. It's a very simple kind of things. It is available, the data, and easily can be operationalized. Thank you.
The last question. That is, okay, students, I think students should be given more, I think, okay, I'll just one point, yeah, one point, I think, our analysis of who gained through our concerted efforts towards equity, we found that it is not the share in terms of the devolution, it's not the lower income states that gained, it's at over time who gained is the middle income states. In our Visakhapatnam, in my Visakhapatnam presentation before the Finance Commission, and also the report that we have submitted to the Finance Commission from GIFT, what we have argued is that among the many arguments in this context, given the fact that India is trying to become a developed economy by 2047, your strategy of hand-holding the laggards, which you have been upholding equity, that has to be changed with a walking on two-leg strategy. While hand-holding the laggards, you must also promote the performers, because a state like Kerala, being a performer, the share has almost halved from 10th Finance Commission to, then we argued that if you divide the Indian states into two categories, which are producing tradables and non-tradables, tradables, I don't want to complicate I don't want to take more time. In Kerala, being a state which is actually focusing on export-oriented human capital production, which is a non-tradable, we have been contributing towards national development, contributing 23% of the total remittance income by 2.7% of the population, but never get calculated, never get into the calculus of your Finance Commission in rewarding us. No, the point I'm trying to say here is that the point of rewarding performance, that is precisely what we want to argue, that we need to build in contribution to national development, but a Columbia University professor and big professors should not be doing this. That's the only thing. That's the only thing.
Hello. My question is for the whole panel. My question is for the whole panel. Like, the rationale for the devolution is to address the inherent fiscal imbalances. There is vertical and the horizontal imbalances, and vertical imbalances are arising from the constitutional assignment itself. But the horizontal imbalance is coming from more structural, geographical, historical factors. So how far we can and these transfers are very little while comparing to the overall structural inequalities in the economy. So how far we can justify the equity concept in the transfers? And that is my question.
Yeah. Sukumar, I'll try to answer, but I don't know whether. Yeah, I think you talked about three issues. One is population groups. Do we just take the population number, or should we take groups that are at different economic strata? I have to look at whether earlier Finance Commission has it. Generally, population is considered as a neutral indicator of need, and it is about giving assured per capita transfers to everyone. So this is something which will make the formula more complicated. So since it is a neutral indicator of need, and part of it is addressed by income inequality. So income distance is also taken into consideration. But this issue remains because the population is not a homogeneous group. That issue is. But how much it can be addressed to the devolution formula, I'm not too sure. Yeah.
I will answer you.
Gotcha. On the question of, yes, area, actually, I'll give you an example. I was in the 14th Finance Commission, And there was this memorandum from one of the states, hilly states, I think it was Himachal, and they had said that use 3D area because they're hilly states. And there was some estimates of 3D area done. Actually, distribution remained flat. It did not change the devolution formula because the 3D and 2D area composition across states was not very different. So that I want, but we have not looked at area in water area that is not land area and the water area that we haven't. But 3D Finance Commission tried, then it was dropped because it was not making any difference to the devolution. And purpose of devolution is very limited from that point of view. I just wanted to mention those 2 points to you. Yeah, 3 different years, tax effort to GSDP ratio were having an inverse relationship with per capita income. That's quite counterintuitive. So I would still think that even if we don't take tax to GDP ratio, some direct measure of efficiencies other than GSDP share, whether you take why you have taken square root, because you have taken square root, and if you look at Tamil Nadu, no, let's not consider Tamil Nadu, because Tamil Nadu per capita income is going up. Maharashtra's per capita income has come down over time, okay? Gujarat's per capita income has come down, but they have a very high share. So if you actually did not take the square root, their share would have jumped down. So in order to ensure that that kind of abnormality is not there in the devolution shares of individual states, the square root was taken. So, and good that it was taken. Otherwise, the share of low income states would have further come down. Okay. So I don't see any problem with the square root, but certainly this is a combination of income ranking falling, then share of income being very high. Classic case is Gujarat and Maharashtra. Their income per capita income ranking is declining, but the share in the total GDP is very high. So that way it would have, so they would have benefited from both so significantly that this devolution formula would have had a political backlash. That's why they haven't done it. And that's very simple. That's why they have taken the square root. So it is not even to ensure efficiency, but it sends a very wrong signal. That's the point I'm trying to say. Yeah, on the question of progressive distribution of, yes, it is not taking place. What is happening in India for the last 30 years, if starting 11th Finance Commission, the share of bottom 10 states, I have written this and I've got this data. I'll share it with you. I have it in the form of a PPT. The devolution to the bottom 10 states actually remained at around 58 to 60% of the total devolution. So finance commissions also have, by several iterations, you was talking about weights, how it is assigned. They also understand that beyond a point, you also cannot push progressivity because there will be fiscal instability in richer states. It is not that richer states issues are not considered. But what is happening is that what was happening until the 16th Finance Commission report was the top 5 high income states share also was coming down. Who was benefiting? Because this share was going to the middle income states, and middle income states makes maximum noise, okay? And they also get benefit out of it. So that's clearly the data shows. We had a seminar in NIPP and somebody asked what Bihar and UP should do. I was telling that he was my former colleague, very nice friend. I told her I have a seminar because so nobody is bothered. In UP, Bihar, Bengal, it's okay, fine, chalta hai. So the point here is there is a pressure on the Finance Commission. States make noise, they get money. That is happening. You look at 30 years. You see, look at Kerala's share, 1.95 to 2.38. It entirely covers your revenue deficit grant that you got for the last 5 years. You're saying, I haven't got revenue deficit grant. This is a very bad report. So that way we cannot have devolution discussion. Huh? So let's be real and little more considerate to other states. So I stop at that. Thank you.
Chance is over.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, so now let me give a reply to your question. Yes, sir, quickly. The first one relating to Dr. Pinaki's diagram, right? See, basically in econometric class we teach. Suppose you have different lines for 3 different period, you cannot simply pull it unless otherwise the intercept slope must be the same. So otherwise you are the slope.
Take an econometric class for that.
Yes, sir. No, that is why he was raising the question, sir. So since this is the one
That's
issue.
correct. It was just indicative.
Okay, the second. Yes, yes, sir. So the next point is that, you already mentioned about Dr. D.K. Srivastava. Oh, okay, I fully agree. But suppose you take any fiscal variable, divide by GSDP. Okay, it's as a ratio of GSDP and then divide by population. It's a per capita figure, right? If you rank with the 2 different indicators, obviously you will get a different ranking for different states. So based on the convenience, people use either variable as relative to GSDP or per capita figures, then they will argue that conversion happens or diversion happens. All these they will argue fiscal in the fiscal variable. So it depends upon their objective. Okay. So, but I won't believe mathematically it is not okay. In reality, also it is not happening because the actual data clearly indicate even for merit goods, education, health. I showed the figures, right? So that's what. Actually, our basic issue is that if you look at 1960-61 per capita figures for low income states like Bihar, UP, West Bengal, for which we have the latest data and compare now. For the last 60, 60, 75 years, they lie in the bottom of the table. So fundamentally, there is a issue. So whatever commission comes for the last 75 years, they are not able to fill our horizontal gap or whatever gap. Okay. So I think we have to change fundamentally the system. So then only it will be possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, only thing I emphasize it is that when you are talking about this public policy, it has dynamic effects. It can decide your ability to grow faster. And once you have, so when we are talking about this equalization, we are considering only the static aspect, and that is the one. Then second thing is that when we are talking about the poor states, this divergence can lead to extreme disparity. And that case, I'm not confining to the whether Finance Commission can do it, all these things, and ultimately what matters is the stability and of the polity. If the country, one side is extremely poor, another side is relatively richer, then it's not good for our country. So we may have to make alternative arrangement. And in these kind of things, the issue of institutions, I think all the states are working on the same institution, same.
No.
Maybe the
In Karnataka, there are different types of nature, these things.
but locally differences are there.
System.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah,
That
there is a whole lot of
differences
problems.
are, but still some of the major are same constitution, same.
Take 2005 paper by Abhijit Banerjee.
Yeah, that's
And Lakshmi.
land. Yeah, that
basically,
yeah,
talking
even-
about
even-
the growth rate according to the land tenure system. And you see that where places where there was Rayatwari system,
yeah,
the growth rate was low, education levels were low, and then overall development this thing was low.
yeah.
So I mean, let us.
Yeah, in that I'm coming to that. In that case, if we want to take these poor states up, we have to make a lot of effort, invest, and it take time, and then so
I'm only saying
these,
that
yeah.
institutions matter.
Yeah,
That's the point I'm making.
it needs a planning from the bottom.
No, it's not just the planning. There is a whole lot of
No,
other
means
things.
planning means that
I have-
understanding.
I have
That-
just finished a report
Yeah.
for Karnataka, which is placed in the assembly today. Anyway, let us now. Thank you for this thing. Let me just take 1 or 2 things.
Thank you. No, no, thank you. No, no, thank you. Thank you. That's no, no. It was a, yeah, I think it was,
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
I think it was a nice session. I think,
Sir,
I think
we
the
have-
key session, yeah,
we-
I think,
we have a memento.
I think we have a memento to be given. It's yeah. Perhaps. This is memento to be given away to your finalists.
Oh.
You will be giving it to the finalists.
The beard is permanent.
Professor Shanmugam. Yeah, this is for Professor Shanmugam.
Okay.
This is for. Professor, DN, okay, you give away to.
No, no, don't worry about it.
No, no.
Have a long debate. I know.
I think so. I just come.